Welcome back to Rare Coins Shop, where every coin could be a hidden treasure. First, we're revealing coins that might be worth a fortune right under your nose. If you're new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join our hunt for rare and valuable finds. Let's dive right in. We're diving deep into the 1966 United States 1-cent coin. This seemingly ordinary penny could be worth far more than you think, and you might just have one sitting around in your collection or even in your spare change that's worth a small fortune. Let's start by taking a step back into history. The 1966 1-cent coin, like most coins, was part of the United States regular minting process, but it was produced during a particularly interesting time in American history. The 1960s were filled with cultural shifts, political upheaval, and economic changes. The country was transitioning through a period of significant growth and challenges, and that year saw the United States grappling with a variety of domestic issues. Amidst all that, the penny, as small and unassuming as it was, continued to be an important part of the nation's currency. The 1966 penny is also significant because it marks a unique time in the evolution of U.S. coinage. By 1966, the U.S. Mint had already started experimenting with the use of different materials for the production of coins, as copper became more expensive. While the penny was still primarily made of copper, it was starting to shift towards a more complex composition that would eventually lead to the introduction of the copper-plated zinc penny in 1982. The 1966 penny was produced in large numbers, so finding one in average circulation is quite common. However, what sets some of these pennies apart is their rarity in exceptional condition and the potential for minting errors that can make them highly valuable. Speaking of condition, this is where the 1966 penny really shines. Like with any coin, its value increases exponentially if it's in pristine condition, unblemished by the wear and tear of circulation. Coins that have been well preserved, stored in safe places, and kept away from the elements are far rarer than you might think. Many pennies from this era were spent and circulated, becoming tarnished, scratched, or dented. However, if you've got a 1966 penny that's shiny, well preserved, and without any signs of wear, you might be holding onto something incredibly valuable. Another factor to keep in mind is the possibility of minting errors. The U.S. Mint has occasionally made mistakes while striking coins, leading to misprints, off-center strikes, double dies, or other errors that make certain coins stand out from the rest. The 1966 penny, like many other coins from that era, has been known to have a few examples that were struck incorrectly. These error coins are highly sought after by collectors because they're one-of-a-kind pieces that deviate from the norm, making them incredibly rare and highly collectible. In fact, one of the most notable errors for the 1966 penny involves the 1966 double die variety. This means that some of the coins were struck with an error where the design was doubled on the coin. If you come across a 1966 penny with the double die variety, it could potentially be worth a significant amount more than a regular, well-circulated penny. These coins, with their distinct visual flaws, are some of the most coveted finds in the coin collecting world. So, how much could your 1966 penny be worth? Well, the value of a 1966 penny can vary significantly depending on its condition and whether it has any minting errors. A coin that's been well preserved and is in uncirculated condition can be worth several dollars, but if it has any sort of double die error or other minting mistakes, its value could skyrocket. And, believe it or not, a 1966 penny in perfect condition with the right minting error could be worth a whopping $107,000. Yes, you heard that right. $107,000 for a single 1966 penny. This is the incredible value of a rare, error-free, or minting error penny. It's not something you come across every day, but if you happen to have one of these rare finds, you might want to have it professionally appraised because it could be worth far more than you ever imagined. Now, let's talk about how you can find out if your 1966 penny is valuable. First, carefully examine the coin. Look for any doubled letters or numbers, especially around the date or inscriptions on the coin. If you notice any unusual features, such as a distorted or doubled design, you might have a double die error on your hands. Additionally, check for any signs of wear. The cleaner and more pristine the coin, the better its potential value. If you're not sure whether your coin is an error or in excellent condition, it's always a good idea to take it to a professional coin dealer or a grading service. They'll be able to evaluate your penny and give you a more accurate idea of its worth. Remember, the condition of the coin and whether it has any minting mistakes will play a huge role in determining its final value. In conclusion, the 1966 U.S. 1-cent coin might look like just another penny, but if you know what to look for, it could be worth a small fortune. With its potential for minting errors, its significance in U.S. coin history, and the possibility of finding one in pristine condition, this coin is a treasure trove for any serious collector. If you've got one of these coins in your collection, make sure to give it a closer look. It could be worth much more than you think. Second rare coin. If you've ever come across a 1970 U.S. 1-cent coin, you might want to take a second look. What seems like a regular penny could actually be hiding a significant value. Stick around as we dive deep into the history, rarity, and potential worth of the 1970 1-cent coin, and reveal just how much this little piece of history could fetch on the market. Let's begin by looking back to the year 1970. The world was a vastly different place, a time marked by social change, political movements, and even space exploration. The U.S. Mint was still producing pennies in copper, which is something to keep in mind because by the early 1980s, the composition of the penny would change. The 1970 penny was part of a rich era of American coinage, and while it might seem like a simple, everyday penny, it carries a unique charm and significance that collectors love to chase. And now, let's talk about what makes the 1970 penny special. To start with, this coin was minted during a time when the U.S. Mint was still using the copper composition for pennies, which means these coins were quite different from the ones produced later. While the penny is often considered one of the most common coins in the U.S., the 1970 version has a key feature that makes it especially intriguing for collectors: its potential for minting errors and its overall rarity in certain conditions. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 1970 penny is its rarity in uncirculated condition. Over the years, most of these pennies have been used in daily transactions and have shown signs of wear and tear. The majority of 1970 pennies found in circulation today are not in the best condition, making it quite rare to come across one that's still in pristine condition. Coins that have been well preserved over the years are highly sought after by collectors because their value can skyrocket compared to those that are well worn, but that's not all. In addition to the pristine condition, some 1970 pennies are known to have minting errors, which adds an entirely different layer of excitement for coin collectors. One of the most famous types of errors found in the 1970 penny is the double die variety. This error occurs when the die used to strike the coin malfunctions, causing a doubling effect in the design. If you happen to come across a double die 1970 penny, it's considered a rare find, and its value could be much higher than that of a regular 1970 penny. In particular, the 1970's double die obverse penny is one of the most sought-after varieties. This coin features a noticeable doubling on the obverse, especially in the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," which appear to be doubled. The 1970's double die penny is often in higher demand because it stands out in the world of coin collecting, and finding one in good condition could make you the proud owner of a valuable treasure. Keep in mind that not all 1970 pennies are double dies, but if you happen to find one, it could be worth a pretty penny, pun intended, of course. While errors like the double die are incredibly rare, they are far from the only reason why the 1970 penny is worth keeping an eye on. Even without errors, coins in great condition can still fetch a nice sum at auction, depending on how well preserved they are. A well-circulated 1970 penny might only be worth its face value of 1 cent, but a pristine example or one with minting errors could be worth a lot more. Now, you might be wondering, just how much is a 1970 penny worth? Well, it all comes down to the condition and the rarity of the coin. If you have a double die 1970's penny, it could fetch a substantial amount on the market. However, even without an error, an uncirculated 1970 penny in mint condition can still be worth a considerable amount of money. So, how much could your 1970 penny be worth? If you happen to have a highly graded 1970 penny in excellent condition, especially one with an error like the double die, it could be worth a staggering $100,000. Yes, you read that right, $100,000. It might sound unbelievable for such a small coin, but that's the beauty of the coin collecting world. The rarer and better condition your coin is in, the more valuable it becomes. Before you get too excited, though, it's important to understand that not all 1970 pennies will reach this high of a price. Most will likely be worth only a few dollars at most, but if you've got an error or a coin that's in exceptional condition, it's worth checking with a professional appraiser or coin dealer to see just how much it's worth. You never know, you might just have a rare gem tucked away in your coin collection or even hidden in your pocket change. In conclusion, while the 1970 U.S. 1-cent coin might seem like a simple and common penny at first glance, it can be a goldmine for those who know what to look for. Whether you're examining your change for a double die error or just keeping an eye out for well-preserved specimens, this coin holds a fascinating potential value. If you've got a well-preserved 1970 penny or a double die variety, you could be holding on to a coin worth as much as $100,000. Third expensive coin, we're diving into the world of the 1960 US 1-cent coin, a coin that could be hiding in your pocket change right now, and you might be sitting on a small fortune. Let's start with a little bit of history. The 1961-cent coin is part of a series of pennies that were produced during a fascinating period in American history. The 1950s and 1960s were times of change, with the country emerging from post-World War II prosperity and entering a new era of economic and cultural shifts. In 1960, the United States was enjoying an economic boom, and the penny was one of the most commonly used coins in circulation. So, the 1960 penny holds significance not just in terms of its design, but also as a snapshot of the times. On the obverse side of the coin, you'll find the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. This design has been a staple on the penny for more than a century and is one of the most recognizable symbols in U.S. coinage. Above Lincoln's head, the words, "In God We Trust," are prominently displayed, while "Liberty" arches across the top. You'll also see the year, 1960, beneath Lincoln's portrait, marking the year the coin was minted. On the reverse side of the 1960 penny, you'll find the traditional wheat stalks design, which had been in use since 1909. This particular design features two stalks of wheat framing the words, E pluribus unum, and 1 cent, as well as the phrase, United States of America. This wheat design would remain on the penny until 1958, after which it was replaced with the Lincoln Memorial design. But the 1960 penny, with its wheat reverse, is an important piece of history for collectors, marking the last years of the iconic wheat design. Now, let's talk about what makes this coin so valuable today. While most people think of pennies as being worth only 1 cent, the 1960 penny, especially certain versions of it, can be worth much more, depending on its condition and any potential minting errors. If you've got a 1960 penny in your collection, the first thing you should do is check its condition. A coin's value is heavily influenced by its grade, and the 1960 penny is no exception. If your coin is in mint condition, meaning it has little to no wear, scratches, or discoloration, then it could be worth a lot more than just a penny. But even if your 1960 penny isn't in perfect condition, don't count it out just yet. There's still another factor that could significantly boost its value: minting errors. Minting errors occur when there's a problem during the production of the coin, such as a misaligned die, double strikes, or even a coin that was struck with a wrong planchet. These errors are what make certain coins especially valuable, and the 1960 penny is no exception. Collectors and enthusiasts go wild for error coins, and if you happen to have a 1960 penny with a rare error, it could skyrocket in value. One of the most sought-after varieties of the 1960 penny is the double die error, where the coin was struck twice by the die, resulting in doubling of the letters and numbers on the coin. This is a rare error, and if you find a 1960 penny with a double die error, you might have a coin worth far more than its face value. The 1960 double die penny can fetch thousands of dollars at auction, depending on its condition and the severity of the error. Another potential variation to watch for is the 1960 small date and 1960 large date pennies. This was a result of the U.S. Mint using two different die types during that year. The small date version has the numbers in the date appearing much smaller than the large date version. Coins with the small date can be more valuable due to their rarity and the fact that they were only produced in limited quantities. If you're lucky enough to have a small date 1960 penny, it could be worth a lot more than the typical large date version. So, just how much can a 1960 penny be worth? If you have a well-preserved, uncirculated penny, you could be looking at a value far beyond 1 cent. A 1960 penny in great condition, without any errors, could be worth anywhere from $5 to $10, sometimes even more depending on demand from collectors. But it's the error varieties, especially the double die and small date pennies, that truly have the potential to bring in huge returns. The real jackpot, though, comes if you've got an exceptional 1960 penny. With the right error or in top-tier condition, these coins can fetch as much as $130,000, yes, you heard that right. $130,000 for a single penny. It's crazy to think that something so small and seemingly insignificant could hold such value, but in the world of coin collecting, it's the rare and unique coins that steal the show. In conclusion, if you've got a 1960 US 1-cent coin in your collection, it's definitely worth taking a closer look. Whether it's the double die error, the small date, or simply a well-preserved, uncirculated penny, the 1960 penny could be worth far more than you imagined. And if you're lucky enough to have one of these rare varieties, you could be looking at a life-changing amount of money. So, next time you're sorting through your change or browsing through your coin collection, don't overlook that 1960 penny. It could just be your ticket to a small fortune. Especially, we're diving into the world of the 1978 US 1-cent coin, an often overlooked penny that could actually be worth a lot more than you think. Stick around as we unravel the history, significance, and value of this special coin, and find out just how much it could fetch on the market today. First, let's step back in time and look at the year 1978. The world was experiencing some exciting changes, especially in the United States. The 1970s were a period marked by political shifts, social movements, and, of course, economic changes. When it comes to coins, the 1978 penny was part of a transitional time for the U.S. Mint, as they were continuing to use the familiar copper composition for pennies. While the 1978 1-cent coin may seem like just another year in a long line of pennies, it holds some subtle yet intriguing features that could make it a standout piece for collectors. Now, when we talk about the 1978 penny, we're referring to the Lincoln Memorial design, which had been in circulation for decades by this point. On the obverse, front, side, you'll find the iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States, gazing into the distance with his familiar, calm expression. Above his head, the words, "In God We Trust," are inscribed, with "Liberty" and the year of minting, 1978, along the sides. The design is simple yet powerful, and it's been a part of American coinage since the early 1900s. On the reverse side of the coin, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, which was featured on pennies from 1959 to 2008. The memorial's depiction represents the foundation of the U.S. government and is a nod to Lincoln's legacy. This design continued to be used for many years, making the 1978 penny a familiar piece for people collecting coins during the 20th century. But what sets the 1978 penny apart from many other pennies from that era? Well, it's all about rarity and condition. When most people think of pennies, they might assume they're just a small, low-value coin that gets tossed around without much thought. However, for serious coin collectors, pennies, especially those from certain years, can be incredibly valuable. So, why is the 1978 penny of particular interest to collectors? There are a few key factors that play into the value of this coin. First, we have to take a look at minting errors. Yes, you heard that right, errors can make a coin much more valuable than its original issue price. For the 1978 penny, some coins were struck with slight design flaws, such as misaligned dies or double strike errors. These errors make the coin more unique and, as a result, more valuable to collectors who are always on the lookout for rare finds. One of the most sought-after varieties of the 1978 penny is the double die error, which occurs when the die used to strike the coin malfunctions, creating a doubling effect on the coin's design. On a double die 1978 penny, you'll notice a visible doubling on the wording and even parts of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Finding a double-die penny is a rare treasure for any collector, and if you happen to stumble upon one in your collection, it could be worth much more than you expect. Beyond error coins, the condition of the 1978 penny plays a huge role in its potential value. If you happen to find a mint-condition penny that has been preserved carefully and never circulated, it's considered uncirculated, and these coins are always in high demand. Even a regular 1978 penny in good condition could be worth more than face value, but those mint-condition versions can sometimes fetch surprising prices at auction or among private buyers. Now, let's talk about how much you could actually expect to sell a 1978 penny for. If you've got an uncirculated version or a double-die error penny, you're looking at a much higher value than just 1-cent. Collectors have been known to pay hefty amounts for well-preserved coins from this era, especially those with notable minting errors. So, just how much is a 1978 penny worth? If you're lucky enough to have a well-preserved, error-free penny, you might expect to sell it for a small premium over face value, around $5 to $10. However, if you're one of the fortunate collectors to have a double-die error penny or another rare variety, you could be looking at a much higher payout. In fact, some 1978 pennies have been known to fetch up to $80,000. Yes, that's right, $80,000 for a single 1978 penny with a rare error or in pristine condition. Now, before you run off to check your coin jar or look through your change, it's important to keep in mind that not all 1978 pennies will be worth that much. You'll need to inspect the coin carefully for minting errors, doubled features, or signs of unusual wear and tear that could make it stand out. The 1978 penny might seem like just another coin, but if you've got one in top condition or with a rare minting error, it could be worth more than you imagined. In conclusion, while the 1978 US 1-cent coin might seem like a simple, everyday penny, it holds incredible potential for collectors. Whether you've got a mint-condition penny or a double-die error, it's worth taking a closer look at your 1978 pennies to see if you have a valuable treasure hiding in plain sight. And who knows, you might just be holding on to a coin worth $80,000. Last unique coin, we're talking about the 1971 US 1-cent coin, and trust me, you'll want to stick around to learn why this coin could be much more valuable than you think. Let's start with a little background. The 1971 1-cent coin is part of the Lincoln Cent series, a coin that has been in circulation since 1909. Over the decades, the 1-cent coin has undergone a few design changes, but it's the 1971 penny that holds some intriguing surprises, especially if you know what to look for. The 1971 penny was produced during a period of economic change in the United States, and it marks an era when the country was recovering from inflationary pressures. It was the beginning of a new decade, and the 1971 penny would go on to become a key piece of history for collectors. The front of the 1971 penny features the well-known portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. Lincoln has been on the penny for over a century, and his image is widely recognized around the world. Above Lincoln's head, the phrase, "In God We Trust," is inscribed, and the word "Liberty" arcs across the top of the coin. Below Lincoln's image, you'll see the year, 1971, marking the year the coin was minted. On the reverse side of the coin, you'll find the familiar wheat stalk design. The two stalks of wheat frame the words, E pluribus unum, and United States of America, with the phrase, 1 cent, at the bottom. This wheat design had been in use since 1909, and it continued until 1958, when it was replaced by the Lincoln Memorial design. The 1971 penny, however, still carries the wheat stalks reverse, which gives it a historical significance for collectors who appreciate the old design. But here's where it gets interesting: what makes the 1971 penny stand out and become so valuable? While most people assume that pennies are worth only 1 cent, the reality is that certain 1971 pennies can actually fetch hundreds, even thousands, of dollars, depending on their condition and any errors they might have. And when it comes to value, the 1971 penny holds a special place in the coin world. First, let's talk about the importance of condition. The value of a coin is heavily dependent on its grade. Coins in mint condition or uncirculated condition are the most valuable. If your 1971 penny has minimal wear, no scratches, and retains its original luster, then you could be looking at a coin worth much more than its face value of just 1 cent. However, it's the minting errors that really make the 1971 penny a collector's dream. Minting errors occur when something goes wrong during the production process, resulting in a coin that is different from the rest. There are several types of errors that can occur, and some of these errors are extremely rare, making the coin significantly more valuable. One of the most exciting errors to look for in a 1971 penny is the double die error. This happens when the coin is struck twice by the die, resulting in a noticeable doubling of the letters and numbers on the coin. If you find a 1971 penny with a double die error, you might have a coin that could be worth thousands of dollars. The more pronounced the doubling, the more valuable the coin. Another potential error to look for is a misaligned die error. This occurs when the die used to strike the coin is out of alignment, causing the design to appear off-center. If your 1971 penny has a misaligned die error, it could be worth considerably more than a regular penny. Collectors love misaligned die errors because they are unique and rare. Another thing to consider is whether the 1971 penny has a die crack or planchet flaw. These are small imperfections in the metal that were caused during the minting process, and while they may seem minor, they can add significant value to the coin. A die crack can appear as a raised line on the coin, and a planchet flaw could result in a small indentation or uneven surface on the coin. While these might not make the penny worth thousands of dollars, they can certainly increase its value compared to a regular, non-error coin. Now, you might be wondering, what's the potential value of a 1971 penny? Well, it really depends on the specific coin and its condition. Most 1971 pennies in good condition are worth just a few cents more than face value. However, coins with errors, such as the double die or misaligned die varieties, can be worth hundreds, or even thousands, of dollars to the right buyer. In the most extreme cases, a 1971 penny with a significant error and excellent condition could fetch as much as $60,000. That's right, $60,000 for a single penny. It's hard to believe, but in the world of coin collecting, anything is possible when it comes to rare finds and unique minting errors. So, what does this mean for you? If you happen to have a 1971 penny sitting in your coin collection or maybe even buried in your spare change jar, it's definitely worth taking a closer look. If your penny has any noticeable errors, wear, or unique characteristics, you might have a valuable piece of history in your hands. Remember, the value of a coin is often determined by its rarity and demand in the market. As more and more collectors and investors look for rare and error coins, the value of certain pennies, like the 1971 penny, can soar to astronomical heights. So, the next time you're going through your coins, don't dismiss that 1971 penny. It might just be worth far more than you thought. In conclusion, the 1971 penny may appear to be just another ordinary penny, but for the right collector, it could be a small treasure worth tens of thousands of dollars. If you've got one of these coins in your collection, it's time to take a closer look. You never know, you might just have a coin that's worth far more than its face value. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about valuable coins and how to spot them, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest discoveries. Happy collecting, and remember, every penny counts.